used to think customer service just meant swallowing your pride. That changed the day a man in a $400 haircut decided my body was a topic open for discussion. I was cutting hair at a mid-range salon downtown, the kind of place where regulars tip well and nobody causes trouble. He was a new client, mid-50s, expensive watch, the type who talks louder than necessary so everyone within 20 feet knows he's important. The second I draped the cape over him, he looked me up and down in the mirror and said, "You're too pretty to be doing this job. Bet you make more money after hours, huh?" I froze for half a second, then forced a professional smile and asked what he wanted done. He kept going anyway, telling me my type always ends up serving drinks somewhere else eventually, laughing like it was the funniest thing he'd said all week. I bit my tongue because I needed the tips, because complaining about a client before he'd even paid felt like a fight I'd lose, because I'd learned a long time ago that reacting only gives men like him more to work with. 40 minutes in, he decided the color wasn't warm enough, even though it matched the swatch he'd picked himself. He stood up mid-foil, cape still on, and started yelling that I'd ruined his hair, that I clearly didn't know what I was doing, that management would hear about this. Two other stylists stopped working. Clients in the waiting area went quiet. I apologized, told him I'd happily adjust the tone, and reached for the color bowl to fix it. That's when he grabbed a fistful of wet foils out of his own hair and threw them at my chest. Chemical dye splattered across my apron and down my white shirt, some of it hitting my neck close enough to sting. He stormed out without paying, screaming that he'd leave a review that would end me. I stood there in front of a full salon, dye running down my collar, and nobody said a word for what felt like a full minute. My manager, Denise, finally walked over, looked at my shirt, then at the door he'd just slammed, and said one sentence, "Don't worry, I know exactly who that is." Turned out Denise did know him. He'd pulled the same stunt at her sister's salon across town 2 years earlier, dined and dashed on a $600 color correction, then actually did leave a scathing fake review under a burner account. Denise had been waiting 2 years for him to walk back through a set of doors she controlled. He came back 6 weeks later. Not to our salon, he wouldn't dare, but to a wedding, of all places, where Denise had been hired to do the bridal party's hair. He was the groom's uncle. Denise recognized him the second he sat down in her chair, joking with his nephew about getting cleaned up for the big day. She didn't say a word about the salon. She didn't need to. She just smiled, draped the cape over him, and got to work exactly the way she would for any client, except this time she took her time. She took an hour longer than necessary, working every angle of feedback he gave with theatrical patience, agreeing sweetly with every complaint he made about the shade, the layers, the part. He left thinking he'd gotten the best haircut of his life. He hadn't. The wedding photos, when they eventually made their way onto the groom's public Instagram months later, told a different story. His hairline was uneven in a way that only showed under harsh flash photography, subtle enough that he'd never suspect it wasn't an accident, obvious enough that half the comments under the family photos were people gently asking if he was okay. Denise never touched his hair again after that day. She didn't need to. He'd walked out of that chair convinced he'd won, completely unaware the receipt for what he did to me had finally come due, paid for in 100 years worth of wedding photos he couldn't take back. I kept a photo of my ruined shirt for a long time, dye stain and all, not out of bitterness, but as a reminder that some people never expect the moment their cruelty finally catches up with them, and that sometimes the person quietly holding the scissors is the one keeping score the whole time.